Acclaimed two-time author and motivational speaker extraordinaire. Give it up for the host of the Brandon Holt Show. It's Brandon Holt.
This is one of my favorite songs, Blue Skies. And nowadays, we all can use a little blue sky. Blue skies smiling on me. Nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song. Nothing but bluebirds all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright. When you're in love, everything's right. Watching all the days hurry by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Those blue days, all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on. I'm imagining being in a small, intimate space with friends, colleagues, fellow musicians, fellow singers, on a nice, smooth, breezy, wonderful, love-filled night. Remember? Gathered together around a piano. Listen to that. Right here, where they say, give the drummer some. I never saw the sun shining so bright. When you're in love, everything's right. Watching all the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Those blue days, all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on. Said nothing but blue skies from now on.
Improve yourself today with Carol J. Nunn, licensed professional counselor, licensed sex offender treatment provider, and licensed chemical dependency counselor. She is the owner of Vast Counseling Services, offering individual, couples, group, family therapy, DWI intervention, education, mental health and alcohol and drug assessment, sex offender treatment, parenting, anger management, and relapse prevention. Contact Vast Counseling today, 713-516-3527. From Gary, Indiana, by way of San Diego, California, she is a musical sensation who's here to tell her story. Put your hands together and let's welcome to the Brandon Holt Show, Miss Alexis Joy. Alexis, good evening to you.
Good evening to you.
And how are you?
I'm excellent. I'm doing well.
That's great. So you're in San Diego.
I am. Yep.
Now, you're in San Diego, but you're from Gary, Indiana. So coming from Gary, you almost have to be able to sing, right?
Absolutely. You know, the Jacksons.
Right? Did you ever get a chance to meet Michael Jackson?
No, I didn't.
So how did you get into singing? Take us back. Tell us about your journey.
Okay. So to try to give you a really nutshell, right, version, I started singing. My mother tells the story that when I was an infant, like 1 year old, really, on her lap, probably no, before one, that I was humming, really. And of course, at that point, there was no context of the fact that this child actually has a gift. But retrospect, she remembers I would hum as a baby. And so then fast forward around the house, I just started singing. But here's the thing, within the church environment that I grew up in, it was a lot of a cappella singing. And so I was hearing singing all the time, you know. I was hearing these beautiful harmonies, and my ear just, I had a natural ear for singing and for hearing notes and music. And then just to have that type of environment and be cultivated in that, naturally, I just continued to use my own voice. And then around the house, if I get in trouble, and my mother and father, they tell the story too. I would actually compose a song around whatever the punishment was. And so they'd be like, no, you're supposed to be mad right now, and you're in here composing a song about the punishment? Really? so, so it just was a natural progression of a gift that God gave me. Right away, I was aware of it, and I began using it. I went to Emerson School for the Visual and Performing Arts in Gary, Indiana, and started studying music in the 6th grade. Music theory, really on a collegiate level from the 6th all the way into the 12th grade until I graduated high school. And then after that, I felt like I'm ready for the big times now, you know. But my mom and dad were like, yeah, but you're going to go to school because we need a backup plan, you know, situation. So I went to Indiana University, studied something I've never really worked in a day in my life. But continue to pursue, you know, this dream and this deep desire to sing. And so I started releasing my own albums. I released my first album my freshman year of college, and flew off to New York to get photos done. I mean, really just,
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was, I mean,
Wow.
by myself, right? Like nothing could stop me. I was so green, so naive, but so full of spirit and aspiration, and just following this call to just use this gift, natural giving gift that God gave me, because no one else in my family could sing, not on the level that I sing. So it was just, you know, but just continued on from there. I've been singing all my life. That has been my main pursuit. In whatever way I could do it, I would perform for shows, for events. People would hire me for weddings, things like that as a child, you know. And so then just continue that pursuit.
And you've had a lot of success. You went overseas to sing in Japan. You also had a residency in, I believe, at the Westin Hotel in San Diego. What was that residency like?
So the residency at the Westgate Hotel, which was here in San Diego, it was a really great time for me. I had just given birth to my first child. So I was in a new phase of my life as a new mom, and figuring, okay, in this new frame of life, where is Alexis joy, you know, now? Because it was probably, I guess, maybe a year and a half or almost 2 after having her, and I wasn't doing much singing at all. And this opportunity came along, and it was just an opportunity for me to kind of really get back out there and, you know, warm my voice up, try to garner an audience here in San Diego, because we were still new to San Diego at that time. But it was great. You know, I had people come out every Wednesday night during that time, and just really got my chops up.
So have you had to make any adjustments to your approach to music during the pandemic?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing a lot of virtual performances, also virtual concerts that I've curated on my own here at home. Pretty much, yeah, everything live and in person has stopped literally from the first day that we had that stay-at-home order.
And I'm assuming you missed the road, and hopefully the end is in sight so you and the other musicians can get out there and start doing your thing.
I do. I pray. And you know what? I believe it's going to be really explosive. Like the live music scene is going to be an explosive situation for everybody on earth once we get past this, you know, because we're craving for that exchange of energy. And anyone who performs, you know, who's an artist, an entertainer, they know that the bulk of what we do comes within the moment of exchanging energy with those who we're, you know,
I like that, the exchanging of energy. How would you define success?
Oh, you know, wow. So such a broad question. I guess for me, it would be still on a path of pursuing what I really deeply believe I was created to do. Because it, you know, the outcome of that success varies from point to point, you know. So maybe in this season it looks like I got a gold record, or in the next season it looks like, okay, I was finally able to cash in financially, and the next, but
Mhm.
what happens is, because it's such ebbs
Mhm.
and flows for anyone and
Mm.
anything that you pursue,
Mhm.
what really makes a success is the fact that you're able to still pursue at all
Mm.
points. And honestly, because this has been quite the journey for me, there have been many a times where I've wanted to give up, stop the presses, pause. God bless America. Y'all don't necessarily need Alexis Joy. You got a million other singers.
Right.
But I actually, in the midst of the hardship, the triumphs, the failures, I'm still actually genuinely pursuing what I love to do and what I truly believe I was created to do. So
That's amazing. And Alexis, do you have a specific goal that you're trying to obtain? Where do you see yourself in the future so that we can continue to follow you and push you and encourage you?
I see myself encouraging as many souls on this earth that would be willing to hear the gift that
Mm.
God gave me. I
Mm.
really want to encourage. That's really my gift. My gift is the gift of encouragement. I utilize my talent of singing to offer that. So if I can see myself still encouraging people through this talent, through singing, which is what I do see, and specifically moms, dads, and babies. Since
Mm.
I've had children, when I was pregnant with my first child, I wrote 14 lullabies just out
Wow.
of like, and it was like, whoa. So even my goals and my dreams, all of that changes as God continues to
Mm-hmm.
evolve me as a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, but whatever that looks like, it's encouraging people.
That's amazing. And do you have any new music or projects you're working on that you'd
I
like to share?
I do, right before the pandemic, and this is so important that I share this with folks. I had just released my newest album, which was a jazz album entitled More
Mm.
Than Love. It's available right now on
Okay.
every streaming platform, every digital platform.
All right.
And we were preparing to, do a tour and performances, but COVID-19 happened. Almost really my first and last performance date to promote that album was in March of 2020. And
Wow.
a few weeks later, we got the
Oh.
stay-at-home order. So More Than Love is out there right now. And it's an amazing album. My husband, he actually wrote a few of the songs on that album. So it's a very intimate work about, our relationship and what is more than love. And if you want to know, you got to listen to the album.
Hey, everybody, that's Alexis Joy, international recording artist. Make sure you check her out. Follow her on all digital platforms. Make sure you follow her on Instagram right now. Her Instagram address is what? What's your address, Joy?
At Alexis Joy Music. And that's J-O-I.
J-O-I, not J-O-Y, J-O-I. Everybody, thank you, Alexis, for coming on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope to be back soon.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We're about to go to the commercial, and we will be right. Abdominal transplant surgeon from the Medical City Fort Worth Transplant Institute in Fort Worth, Texas. The Brandon Holt Show proudly welcomes Dr. Gitu.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
Dr. Gitu, I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
You're very well. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's just start off. What made you get into the field that you're in as a transplantation surgeon?
Well, if you look at the effects of chronic kidney disease on our population, the population in general, one of the absolute most definitive treatments for end-stage renal disease is transplantation. And looking at transplantation, you have elements of immediate fix in terms of surgery, but then you have long-term follow-up in terms of following up in the clinic for the rest of the life for their kidney transplant. So it really gives me an opportunity to make a really big impact up front, but then also to see that bear out over the course of the patient's life.
So what's most rewarding about what you do?
You know, I think when we go to the operating room, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety, family members especially, but they've been waiting 3, 4, 6 years to get transplanted. And so the most rewarding thing is when I'm able to get them to go to sleep, perform a successful operation, and have them wake up with a new lease on life.
Dr. Guito, what is that process like when you're actually taking the organ out and taking the organ to the person who's receiving the transplant? Kind of paint the picture of what do you do right in the middle of the emergency or in the operating room?
Oh, I think that's a really good question. I think when you think about transplant surgery, or at least kidney transplant surgery, we do not remove the organs of the recipient. So if you're getting a kidney transplant, you will end up with 3 kidneys. And if you get another kidney transplant, you will end up having 4 kidneys. And so when I receive an organ that's usually either shipped or flown in from wherever their donor is, I take that organ, I take a look at it before bringing in the patient into the operating room to make sure that it's a quality organ. And then after I've verified that the organ is what is going to be what we expect, then we bring the patient into the operating room and start performing surgery.
So what I hear you saying is that when someone receives a kidney transplant, they now have 3 kidneys inside of them?
Right. I don't even see their kidneys that they're born with.
Okay, got it. So when we think about chronic kidney disease, what are some factors that lead to that? Is it a lifestyle? Is it food intake? Is it lack of exercise? I hear when people take a certain amount of medication for a long, length of time throughout their life, it can affect their kidneys. What are some causes for chronic kidney disease?
And that, those are really good questions. If you look across the United States, the number one reason people develop chronic kidney disease is diabetes. And the number 2 reason people develop chronic kidney disease is high blood pressure. But as we know, developing diabetes or even high blood pressure is a combination of all the things you mentioned. It's a combination of lifestyle, exercise, food choices. And there are also medications that can affect your kidneys as well. So you may have multiple factors that affect kidney health and may end up leading to chronic kidney disease.
Okay, so is there a certain population that chronic kidney disease affects the most, whether it's the African American culture, the Caucasian culture? What culture seems to be impacted the most from your experience?
I think when you look at sheer numbers, looking at the way the population is set up, that most of my patients are Caucasian. But when you look at the percentage of patients that are affected by chronic kidney disease, African Americans are disproportionately affected by chronic kidney disease based on the number of African Americans are in the United States.
Okay, go ahead.
And so if you look at, we are 5 times more likely to be diabetic than the general population. When you look at people with diabetes or who are obese or have high blood pressure within our population, we are more likely to develop end-stage renal disease than the general population. And so if you're looking at numbers, more Caucasian than African American or Hispanic. But if you look at percentage of patients that have disease processes that go on to chronic kidney disease, we are disproportionately affected.
And now you don't just operate on kidney, transplantation. What are some of the other organs that you operate on when you're doing a transplant?
We also at Medical City do pancreas transplants. And that is all of the abdominal organs we do at Medical City Fort Worth, but over at Medical City Dallas, they're going to be doing livers. They also do heart transplants as well. So within the Medical City hospital system,
that someone has to meet? Is it one set of criteria, or is it multiple sets?
Well, for kidney in particular, we basically say you have to have end-stage renal disease. So that's either means you are on dialysis, or you have what we call a GFR. It's a measure of how well your kidneys are filtering of less than 20%.
Now, what exactly is dialysis for our viewers who are watching? Because we know what the term is, but what exactly is dialysis? It's a two-part question. And does someone have to continue to take dialysis in the near term once the transplant has taken place?
Both are good questions. Dialysis is a man-made method of performing one of the many functions that the kidney does. One of the most important functions of the kidney is that it helps to filter our blood. And so it deals with things like potassium levels and electrolyte levels and acid levels in our blood. And so when your kidneys fail, your body no longer is able to regulate those electrolytes. And your body, if you have too much of certain electrolytes, they can affect your heart and lead to things like cardiac arrest. And so dialysis is a way of using a machine where we then filter out those electrolytes so that they don't reach dangerous levels.
Okay,
It
so
also,
go ahead, Doc.
I would say it also helps to regulate how much fluid we have on board as well. So if your kidneys aren't working, you tend to swell up. And so we also can take off fluid through dialysis as well.
Now, can you drink too much water or can you drink not enough water?
Well, you can drink too much water if you drink it very quickly over a short period of time, but your kidneys do a very good job of regulating water. So if you drink water throughout the day, then your functioning kidneys should be able to handle that.
So, doctor, if someone is on the kidney transplant list or any particular organ, two parts. What's the longest they can stay on that list before their body's going to shut down all the way? That's part one. And part two, is there a long waiting list or can you have a direct access to the transplant?
So also really good questions. When you look at and we'll focus on kidney, but if you look at the kidney transplant wait list, there are about 100,000 people in the United States on the wait list right now.
You said how many, Doc?
100,000, about.
100,000, okay.
And we do about 25,000 transplants a year. So that leaves us with 75,000 people a year who are waiting for kidneys that don't get kidneys.
And is there an age limit?
There is not an age limit, but what I do say is as you get older, you do not get healthier. So if you're looking to get transplanted, the younger you are, the more likely you are to be healthy enough to undergo transplant. But I have transplanted people in their mid to upper 70s while at Medical City. And so there is no age limit. It's more about physiologic age than it is about actual age.
Doc, what is the anti-rejection medication that patients have to take for the rest of their life? Why do they have to take that medication and what exactly is it?
The most commonly used anti-rejection medication is tacrolimus, but we also use two other medications alongside. We use prednisone, which is a steroid, as well as Myfortic or Cellcept. And the reason why we have to take that medication for the rest of the life of the kidney is because our bodies have been engineered to fight anything that you haven't been born with. Mm-hmm. So if you put in a kidney transplant, your body is going to recognize that as foreign material and it's going to try to destroy it. And if you miss even one dose of that medication, it gives your body an opportunity to start to perform its job, which is to fight off that kidney and reject it.
So is there a touch and go period post-surgery where you have to really watch the patient, or do you know after the surgery has taken place that, okay, this person is going to be okay, they're going to make it?
That's a good question. Immediately after surgery, you get very, very strong doses of anti-rejection medications. And those medications get put in through your IV. The most common one we use is called thymoglobulin. It's very, very strong. Its effects last up to 6 months after we give you the medication. So while we are getting those other medications up to the levels that we need, you have that medication that's already been given to you that lasts a really long time.
And if someone has the surgery and it's successful and their new kidney rejects, is there another transplant that can take place to put another kidney in?
Yes, I think the first thing to realize about rejection is that rejection doesn't necessarily mean that the kidney stops working. So rejection is a period of time when your body is fighting the kidney, and we actually can treat rejection so that we can prolong the life of that kidney itself. And even if your body rejects the kidney to the point where that kidney stops working, we can give you another transplant in another location.
Wow, that's powerful, Doc. Doc, what are the keys to success?
For transplant or in general?
Just in life. How do you define the keys to success?
I think that there is a tremendous amount of self-reflection that needs to be done in terms of looking at how you want to to have people see you. And then I think there's a tremendous amount of focus that goes into achieving your goals. And then there's also humility. I think humility will take you a long way, in that knowing that there are limitations to what we're able to do. Don't let those hold you back to try to do things. But I do think that, you have to take a look at the blessings that you have and really be thankful for those, because that will really make you appreciate what you're able to accomplish.
Ladies and gentlemen, abdominal transplant surgeon from the Medical City Institute in Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you, Dr. Guiteau, for coming on. He'll be back in just a few minutes. But up next, you do not want to miss this. We have a young lady who received a kidney transplant last year, and she's here to tell her story and what she's doing post-transplant. Crosby, Texas, by way of Baytown, Texas. She's here tonight to share a very special, motivational, inspirational story that I believe the world needs to hear tonight. Help me welcome the one and only Deborah Little. Deborah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brandon?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much, Deborah, for coming on the show. We're just honored to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
That's great. Deborah, you have an amazing story. You've been through some things over the last couple of years, and today you have overcome and you're doing great and you're moving forward in life. Take us back and tell us about this journey that you experienced.
I began to have this experience this journey about 3 years ago, when I started feeling fatigue and not feeling my best. I really didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I was going through menopause, or as women's bodies change through the years. So I wasn't quite, really knowing what was going on. So I just kind of went on about my way. I went for doctor's appointments, but it really didn't show anything. So I ended up having a torn ligament in my left leg. And so I went in to the doctor to get it checked, and they decided that I needed surgery. So from there, they do a wide series of blood work, everything. They do a whole screen of tests on you to make sure you're okay to have surgery. So I was called back into the office, and they said that something was abnormal about some of my blood work, and that I needed to go and get it retested with my regular PCP. So I did that, and it came back abnormal. And so they admitted me into the hospital. They didn't actually tell me what was really going on then, but I knew it was something serious for them to admit me, and right then.
So when you got that news that you had issues with your kidneys, how did you receive? What were the emotions that you experienced when the doctors told you that?
Well, when they told me that I had problems with my kidneys, and they began to run a series of tests. They didn't actually come out and break it down to me and tell me at that very moment what I was really facing. They didn't want to alarm me. So they ran tests, and then they came back and told me that I had end stage renal disease, which is where your kidneys are functioning in a stage 5, which is chronic kidney disease, and my kidneys were at 10%. So, which is really bad.
So when they told you that you had stage 5 disease, what was the next step as far as treatment is concerned?
They gave me different medications to try and see if my kidneys could recover any. Stage 10 is pretty bad, but kidney disease is reversible if you can catch it in time. Even though mine were at 10%, they have had patients that their kidneys did develop back to maybe a stage 3. I've seen some even go back up to a stage 2.
Now,
but they tried to help me, get my kidneys back working, but they weren't successful.
Now, were you immediately placed on the transplant list, or did they come to the conclusion after a series of treatments that they had to go the transplant route?
Well, you have to qualify to be on the transplant list, and it goes by your blood type. So if you're a blood type O, your chance of getting a kidney is a lot quicker.
Okay.
Because there's so many people that's blood type O. I'm blood type A+. So for my blood type, the wait is usually at least 5 years.
So let's fast forward, Deborah. You were on the list, and all of a sudden you get a phone call, and this phone call was a game changer for you. You were at work, minding your business, and all of a sudden, boom, this call comes in, and you've got so much time to get there. You were out of there to go get that kidney. So tell us about that experience for you.
I almost didn't get the kidney, Brandon, because they had been trying to contact me for over an hour. And my husband called me finally and said, "You need to make this call. You don't want to miss this call." I went and made the call, and they offer to see if you want the kidney. They tell you a little bit about your donor, and they only give you a 2-hour window to get to the hospital. So I thought it was like, I was kind of like dreaming, like, is this real? Because it said it was 5 years, but I really received my kidney in a little under 3 years.
So you rushed down there, you were going into surgery, and what was that thought as you were getting ready to go under for surgery?
I was nervous, but I was calm. I was at peace. They explained everything to me, that it could be, that it was a really dangerous surgery, being surgery anywhere from 5 to 6 hours. And we prayed, and I just was at peace with it,
So you had the surgery, you woke up. How do you feel today?
I feel great. It's one day at a time. You're on a lot of meds, and the meds do decrease. And some of the meds I'm on, like the prednisone, it makes you gain weight. So you really have to watch what you eat. You have to be on a plant-based diet. You have to eat the right foods. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. That's the most important thing, is the water. You have to drink plenty of water to nourish that kidney.
Now, and is there a medication that you will take for the rest of your life, or will they decrease you off of meds?
There's 2 medications that I will be taking for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Because my body because the kidney is a foreign object in my body, it's going to try and reject the kidney. So I have to be on meds for the rest of the duration of this kidney.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is, you know, exercising, plant-based diet, taking your medications, drinking a lot of water. But you know what about the individual who was gracious enough to donate their kidney to you? Do you have any information, not on who the person is, but just the story of what happened?
I know that my donor was, my deceased donor was in an accident.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was able to write the donor's family.
Mm.
And so I wrote a long letter to them, thanking them, and they can respond if they want to, or they don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I will continue to write them to let them know how I'm doing and, you know, how well I'm striving and all that.
What an amazing, amazing testimony, Deborah. What can you say to the young man, young lady, older man, older lady who's on the list right now? They've been waiting patiently. Maybe they're not feeling good. It seems like their hope is fading away and they're just ready to give up or throw in the towel. Right now, as they're watching us, what can you say to that person?
I would tell them, don't give up. It may seem like it's a long journey, but it's coming. Just keep praying every day, thanking God for the good stuff and the bad stuff, because you're going to go through some bad things, but the good outweigh the bad. You have to keep holding on and keep pressing on, and just, it'll come. It's like, I didn't even imagine, it didn't even seem like I had been on perennial dialysis for 3 years, and then I got the call. It's like it went by so fast.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Everybody, this is Deborah Little, who's had a successful kidney transplant. Deborah, we wish you the best, and everyone who's watching, whatever your situation is, we want you to know that we're keeping you in our thoughts, that everything works out for you. Deborah, we thank you for coming on, and hopefully you can come back in the future and give us an update on how you are doing.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
You're welcome. All right, everyone, if you would stay tuned, we're going to go to commercial. Got to pay those bills just like every week. But guess what? We'll be right back. Improve yourself today with Carol J. Nunn, licensed professional counselor, licensed sex offender treatment provider, and licensed chemical dependency counselor. She is the owner of Vast Counseling Services, offering individual, couples, group, family therapy, DWI intervention, education, mental health and alcohol, and drug assessment, sex offender treatment, parenting, anger management, and relapse prevention. Contact Vast Counseling today, 713-516-3527.
I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
It's time to elevate your business in 2021. Secure a customized commercial to be aired live on The Brandon Holt Show. Email thebrandonholtshow@gmail.com for more information. With Dr. Green, who is our monthly contributor all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, bariatric surgeon. Dr. Green, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brandon. Hi. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too, Doc. What's going on in Fort Worth, Texas?
Man, trying to stay warm. You know, the temperature's dropped here. I see you're taking some of that advice. You look a little lean yourself there, Brandon.
Hey, Doc, I'm trying to get lean so I don't have to go see Dr. Green.
Okay. Well, that's okay. But just know that if you need to see me, I'm here for you.
Hey, I appreciate that, Doc. It's been a great show so far. Dr. Gito just came out, just out the gate swinging. Then we had Deborah Durden, who received a successful kidney transplant in 2020, I believe. So, Doc, from everything that you heard tonight, let's kind of get into the rise of obesity and how it relates to different health conditions that could lead to a transplant.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we need to clear the air is the fact that obesity in and of itself, as it may be a major contributor to some of these health problems that Dr. Guto was talking about. So he talked about the diabetes, he talked about the hypertension, and if you start looking at root cause, you'll find that obesity ranks amongst the tops as far as the causation of those healthcare problems. And then, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask you real quick. And what exactly does obesity mean for our listeners? Because we've heard the term, but what does it mean?
So obesity is a term that's used based on our body mass index, which is basically a calculation over our height and our weight. And so when you get to a certain level, when you have an accumulation of fat, okay, overproduction of fat cells, and so being overweight, being obese, or being morbidly obese is all based on the body mass index. And so a body mass index of 30 gives you that obese nature. Body mass index of 35 with comorbid conditions, or a body mass index of 40, as we mentioned before, is what we consider morbid obesity because of the increased death ratio that they have with that BMI level.
Okay, so let's tie in. You were saying just a minute ago, we were kind of talking about the rise of obesity related to health related conditions that can lead to a transplant.
So what we're finding is that there's a rise in obesity-related healthcare problems, and what we're identifying is it's the accumulation of fat cells in our solid organs. Dr. Guto, being a kidney transplant, is well familiar with the fact that there's also a rise in kidney disease, end-stage renal disease. You'll find that there's probably easily a 30% increase in individuals that will have end-stage renal disease when they're overweight. And you'll find that those individuals that have liver disease, you'll also find corollary that there is a progression of health disease. In fact, if you look at the literature, you'll find that from non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is basically an overaccumulation of fat cells in the liver, that then progresses to NASH, which is basically non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is basically a progression of that fatty liver disease that basically increases inflammatory cells within the liver, causing liver destruction. It's projected that those individuals, there's a rise in transplantation, and the said cause will be that progression from obesity to NASH. And by 2025, it's projected that it will be the #1 cause for the need for liver transplantation.
Now, you said liver destruction. Is it reversible, or once you have liver disease, it's irreversible?
Well, so no, I think that you can definitely, one thing about liver and regeneration of cells, if you remove the agent that's causing the problems, you can slow down the progression. And so we have had patients that have gone on who've had a certain stage of liver disease, but by losing weight, you'll see they don't go on to progress. So the level to which one needs a transplant really goes back down to the ongoing demise of that organ.
How common is it, Dr. Green, once someone has the surgery to regain the weight that they lost prior to getting the surgery?
So you're referencing a weight loss procedure, right?
And I guess a part of that question is, if someone has a weight loss procedure prior to receiving a transplant,
yes,
they've lost the weight, healthy, looking good, they've received the transplant, and then they've gained the weight back, do they have another weight loss procedure?
So I think now we're talking about revisional surgery. And so at any point in time, you always have to evaluate, did the procedure fail me or did I fail the procedure? I think the common misnomer is that when one has a weight loss procedure, it's one and done. And I think that's wrong for patients. You know, if you have high blood pressure and you're not controlled with one blood pressure medication, what does your doc do? He puts you on another. And so I think that sometimes, if you will, procedures may need to be tweaked. There may be things that go awry that may need to be altered. So I think we should keep our minds open to the impact that revisional surgery is here. Sometimes procedures may run their course in regards to their effectiveness. And we've had a multitude of procedures that have done great by individuals, but through a course of time, there's been some problem or some issue that needs to be advised. So I think that there are patients that may gain their word back, but if it's outside the procedure, what you'll find are the habits. Surgery is only a tool, and so if you start creating bad habits or going back to lack of activity, those will be key factors that may gain weight back in the future.
What's most rewarding about what you do, Dr. Green?
You know, you've heard the saying, being able to have your roses while you're alive. Well,
Right.
understanding that I can impact people's lives every day, I think is what keeps me getting up each morning. When I say that, knowing that here you have intervention, you can render an operation that is totally transforming, not only from a metabolic healthcare standpoint, but what you're giving people is a quality of life. I mean, a quality of life that they haven't had ever, that they can recall, or quality of life they haven't had for a time period. So being able to impact individuals really is quite rewarding.
Everybody, that's Get Lean with Dr. Green, my man, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas. Hey, we have a real special treat coming up. Had a great show so far. Got another performance coming by Alexis Joy, but Dr. Green and Dr. Guito are coming out on the next segment. Hey, we got to go to commercials because we got to pay those bills. Hey, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
I had to meet you here today. There's just so many things to say. Please don't stop me till I'm through. This is something I hate to do. We've been meeting here so long. I guess what we've done was wrong. Please, darling, don't you cry. Let's just kiss and say goodbye.
Yes, bravo. My next two guests are coming from Fort Worth, Texas. You already heard Dr. Guito, who is a transplant abdominal surgeon, and Dr. Green. Get Lean with Dr. Green. We also heard the powerful story from Deborah Little, who received a kidney transplant in 2020. And now we're bringing both of the doctors out on the Brandon Holt Show to get a word on what this process is like. Hey, let's bring back Dr. Guito. Doc, good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Nice
to see Dr. Green as well.
Oh, man.
So we got Get Lean with Dr. Green. We have to come up with a name for Dr. Guito. We're going to work on that over the next couple of days. A title. So guys, let's jump right into it. First, let's talk about what were your thoughts on the powerful testimony of the young lady who overcame transplant surgery?
I think it's an amazing story. I think she really highlights the success that can be achieved through transplantation. I think when you look at what her life was like before transplant, you were able to see that she has been able to not only improve her quality of life from no longer having to be on dialysis to quantity of life as well. Because what we say on average is that once you get transplanted, it increases your length of life by double what it would have been if you stayed on dialysis.
And Dr. Green, I noticed how she was talking about the waiting list, how she had to wait for 3 years before she actually received the phone call. And you guys talk a lot about the barriers to obesity as it relates to transplantation. Can you guys kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so, in my spectrum, in my space, when you look at most transplant centers are reluctant to transplant patients that have that body mass index over 40 because it's been known to have increased operative times, increased infection rates, and also even potentially graft failure. And so when you look at the combination of the inherent risk that the larger BMIs have, they tend to get overlooked disproportionately. And so I think that as you begin to understand obesity as the barrier to why some individuals with a lot of healthcare problems may get overlooked in that process.
I agree with Dr. Green. I think when you look at obesity as a barrier, specifically to kidney transplant, we're looking at increased risk of bleeding, complications immediately post-surgery, complications even involving recurrence of diabetes as a number one cause of kidney disease after you get transplanted. And so when we have our patients who have a BMI of even 35, we're talking about sending them to Dr. Green because of all the health benefits that come from getting bariatric surgery in terms of their general health, but also their success after transplant.
So you mentioned that diabetes is one of the leading risks of the disease. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Diabetes is the number one cause of kidney disease by far, and then number two, hypertension. And a lot of times they come together. And as Dr. Green has mentioned, the major risk factor for diabetes in the United States is obesity, and that has to do with a lot of the physiology of obesity and inflammation that Dr. Green mentioned. And so patients who are obese are at risk for developing diabetes. And then, of course, the diabetes very much leads on into end-stage renal disease. And so we all are really at different points playing a huge part in the health of these patients and their ability to develop end-stage renal disease and need a kidney transplant.
Now, Dr. Green, is it common to operate on young children who are obese? And Dr. Guiteau, is it common to do a transplantation procedure on a young child?
So when you start getting into childhood obesity, I would say surgery is not the first line from the standpoint that now as we look at centers of excellence, they're designating different institutions to which children should be operated on. There's a whole psychological component that I feel that children need to go through to make sure that they are mentally prepared to deal with the issues surrounding surgical responsibilities, post-operative eating, and exercise. And so we don't at our facility treat minors, but there are probably a few centers throughout the country that might treat kids from a surgical perspective, that is.
And when you look at pediatric transplantation, the gambit of disease processes that cause kidney failure in our pediatric population are a little different than what are caused in kidney failure in our adults. A lot of what we look at can be the culmination of genetic disposition and lifestyle factors that affect our adults, whereas children may have more genetic problems that may lead to end-stage renal disease and you need to then get transplanted. We definitely do kidney transplants on pediatric children, but not at our center. But it's definitely not for the same reasons.
So you all have two very successful and powerful programs in the Fort Worth area. How do your programs complement one another?
Well, I think it's a symbiotic relationship, bridging from the fact that when his patients are in end-stage renal disease and they're overweight, adding a surgical tool to help manage that weight before they get transplanted is just another added benefit to the program. And by the nature of us being housed in the same institution, it leads toward a great communication. And I think that therein lies the best when you have physicians being able to talk, being able to have programs that would mirror the outcomes, because now you have that interface about the best incomes for the patient.
Okay. Dr. Guiteau?
Yeah, Dr. Green, we've essentially set up a pipeline of patients that when they come to see us in our clinic, like Dr. Green mentioned, there are some transplant centers who won't even see patients with BMIs of 40 or above. And what we've done is we've developed a weight management program where we say, come bring all of your patients, regardless of BMI, to our center. They'll be seen by our surgeon and our dietitian, and we will do a direct referral to Dr. Green services. so that we can help to expedite their ability to get listed. Because we all know that the most difficult thing we ask anyone to do is to lose weight, let alone a patient who has end-stage renal disease. And so by putting this program and having our symbiotic relationship between our two programs, we really hope to affect change in the sense that we want to get people who will do well with transplant otherwise the tools that they need to get to the weight they need to get to in order to be eligible for transplant.
I think also, Brandon, just to mention that it keeps patients engaged. I mean, the daunting task of saying I have to lose weight, or the daunting task of saying, oh, you're not a candidate because of your weight. I mean, I think it can be a Debbie Downer. And so realizing that, come on, come on, you know, we're going to do it safely, we're going to do it effectively, and therefore therein lies the best outcomes. And then you have the best of both worlds, because our follow-up too is of most importance. You have the follow-up from the transplant side, but also the bariatric side. And my viewpoint is, when you leave my office, you have a follow-up appointment. And so I think that's the key for long-term success, is that follow-up as well.
Dr. Gitu, somebody just received the word today, this morning, on a doctor's visit, that they have to have a transplant. Their mind is all over the place. They're stressed. They're worried. They're in fear of their life. What can you say to that person, and what can you say to the individual who's been on the list for several years and they just feel like all hope is gone? Why even continue?
I would say that there are a lot of emotions going through both of those patients' heads. I think take a step back, take a deep breath in, and realize that these are things that we deal with every single day, and that there are people who are there to answer questions and to help calm them down. The most important thing for the person who is just being diagnosed with end-stage renal disease and that they may need to get transplanted is that transplant is a very long process, but it is a very organized process, in that we have coordinators who will walk you through every single step of the process to make sure you get everything you need done in a timely way in order to get listed for transplant. And we will follow up with you every single year until you get transplanted, to make sure that you continue to take care of yourself in terms of your medical care up until the point you get transplanted. For the patient that's been waiting for a long time on transplant list, I say the fastest way to get transplanted is to get a live donor. And not only is living donation the fastest way to get transplanted, it is the most effective and the most successful way to get transplanted. A deceased donor kidney transplant coming from someone who passes away lasts on average 7 to 10 years. A live donor transplant lasts on average 15 to 20 years. The other beautiful thing about a live donor transplant is that as soon as you have a donor, we can schedule your surgery within within 4 to 8 weeks.
So let's go back. So you said a deceased transplant donor, that organ has a lifespan of how many years?
7 to 10 years on average.
And what
so averages are great for large groups of people, but they're horrible for individuals.
Now what happens after that 7 to 10 years?
You know, so a lot of our patients develop chronic rejection, and that is a combination of the effects of the medications. The medications we use to protect your kidney from your body have the side effect of damaging your kidneys. So it's a combination of those medications damaging the kidneys, as well as a process that we do not fully understand, where there's just a large amount of chronic small hits to the kidneys that lead to eventual rejection and fibrosis of the transplant kidney, where it actually will fail.
So they will need another transplant.
A lot of times, if you get transplanted at a very young age, you may need another transplant. But I will also say that I have had people who come into my office who have had their deceased donor kidney transplant for 30 plus years. Wow. The thing is, we can never know which one any patient will be. I say you control what you can control and let the rest in his hands.
And Dr. Green, is there a lifespan on weight loss surgery as well as a kidney from a deceased donor as opposed to a living donor? Or is there a lifespan on how effective the procedure will last?
How long a weight loss procedure will last for a patient? So we define success by maintaining and losing at least 50% or more of your excess ideal body weight and keeping it off for 5 years. Now, there's a variability to that. But you know, there's studies that suggest even 10 to 14 years out, people will be able to maintain that level of success. but it goes back to what you do with the tool you have. Healthy eating, exercise are always going to be paramount in long-term success. But there may be individuals that may gain weight back over time. But if they're honest with themselves, the key component that happens is the induction, the increase in carbs. And that's what happens.
Well, Doc, I just got to close out with this, guys. Dr. Green, I'm guilty. Dr. Guiteau, I'm guilty. But I'm doing better, though. Let's talk about COVID-19 all-time high. The vaccine is out.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that's a question maybe for next time. What are your thoughts on the vaccine? But a lot of people are trading off right now. You know, I'm exercising 2 hours a day, knocking out that triple cheeseburger at nighttime. Tomorrow I'm back in the gym, and they're just constantly trading off. And in their mind, they're telling themselves, at least I'm exercising, but they're not seeing any outcome. They're not seeing any benefits externally. So what can you say to the person who's struggling with the trade-off right now?
Well, I mean, clearly, I think that you have to look at the calories consumed. You know, I have a simple equation that I talk about. Energy in is greater than energy out. You gain weight, and the energy in is the calories you consume. And so, if you're not going to put in the same level of energy, and the sad thing is, you have to burn more than what you consume. Your body has innate metabolism that you burn every given day. Like right now, we're burning calories. Now, we're not burning as much as we would if we're out running because our body always needs a fuel source. And so you have to just face the reality of doing something different in your life to get a different outcome. Because doing the same thing over and over, trying to get the same outcome or different is insanity.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dr. Guiteau, did you have any final words?
No, I agree. I think when you look at, and it goes to our patients, it's very difficult to get people to lose weight, even with a strict diet and exercise. And for those patients who have the ability to come into the transplant office if they need a kidney transplant, know that we do have some resources and tools through people like Dr. Green to help you lose weight, and not only lose weight, but keep the weight off, which I think is something is also very difficult to do.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on. You've been a great benefit to the show. Hope to have you back, Dr. Guiteau. Your word was right on time. Dr. Green, get lean with Dr. Green.
Hey, thank you, Brandon.
No problem.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'd love to come back.
No
hey,
problem.
Take care, Jack. See y'all around.
Hey, yeah, certainly. Good to see you.
God bless.
We have to go to commercial, but guess what? We'll be right back.
She went from being 14 years old to 2 years old in just 1 week. Hi, this is Connie B, letting you know about the release of my new book, When Screaming Isn't Enough. This is a riveting true story of my 14-year-old daughter being bit by an infectious mosquito. So just go on Amazon.com to get your copy today of When Screaming Isn't Enough by Connie B. That's When Screaming Isn't Enough by Connie B on Amazon.com.
You must be a train to go to Ireland. If you see a train, you find Mr. Between Holland. Hurry, get on, now let's get me. Listen to those rails of gravity on the boy. Get on the A train to go to your club in Holland. Listen to those rails of drumming on the boy. Get on the A train to go to Sugar Hill. We've been Highland. Oh, hurry, 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 let's get there. Listen to those rats at the midnight. Get on the A train to get a shit.